Can everybody see? I don't know if the screen, if it's okay. Okay, so these are, I guess we can begin. Cool. These are kind of always difficult because people have radically different levels of comfort and fluency with social media, so I'm going to try to do kind of a little bit of an overview of what's going on in the world. I can't remember who said it, but there's that quote that, may you be fortunate to live in interesting times, and we live in very interesting times. So I guess we'll kind of go. I want to talk about sort of the what of what's in social media, what's going on, what are the paradigms, why you should be interested in social media, and then hopefully how, and some of the things that will help you succeed. What's going on right now is sort of a revolution in communication, period. Never before have we seen the sort of things that we're seeing now. Social media is basically sort of individualized two-way communication. It's real time, and what that means is that we're entering a new era where there's a whole generations of people growing up that when they email you something at midnight and then you don't respond until 8 in the morning, for them 8 hours have elapsed between the time that they emailed you and you responded. So they're not necessarily happy about that. People expect things now all the time. We're able to form new types of relationships we were never able to form before, relationships based purely on interests, because we have the ability to aggregate all of this data about everyone and look for people based simply on what kind of band they like or what kind of food they like to eat. And that is possible because more information is available online than ever before. The statistic a couple of years ago that I'm sure has been blown out of the water by 2009, but was that more information was created in 2008 than was created in the past, in the rest of human history. Just exponentially more and more information is available online, and it's sort of changed the problem of one that from being able to find information because it's so scarce to being able to find it among all of the other information. So you go from looking for a needle in a haystack to looking for a needle in a pile of needles. The other thing that's interesting about this is information is more permanent than ever before. This is the Wayback Machine, the Internet Wayback Machine. You can, if you haven't seen it before, you can go back and take a look at old versions of web pages, so you can go see what the GRCC web page looked like in 2002, because they've captured that and cached that data. So that's all available. And when you start to think about your Facebook posts, your tweets, all of those things are going somewhere and they're stored somewhere, and they'll be retrievable. And you likely don't control who's archiving them and controlling them, so they've slipped beyond your reach and they're out there now, which is presenting a lot of problems for a lot of people that try to get rid of things that they'd rather not have online. The other thing that's going on is there's just blurring lines everywhere as a result of all of this. We used to have this sort of the mass media model of from one source out to many people, and there was no give back. But we've gone now to this many-to-many model where anyone has the reach of the mass media, and yet they can reach anyone else. We have this amazing new paradigm that really never existed before in human history, where geographical boundaries don't matter, national boundaries don't matter. If you're connected to the internet, with the exception of probably China, you can connect to virtually anyone else. And Robin Dunbar I think he's a sociologist or an anthropologist, and he talked about the idea that humans can only have 150 friends or associates. That's the number at which we can maintain things. But the interesting thing about social media is that it sort of transcends that, because these new types of friends that we can have and the tools that we have available to us, they can offload some of those menial tasks of what Irving Goffman would call rituals of face, like salutations to people, or making sure to check up and ask about their kids. You can sort of cut through all of that and just get the information you need from your friends. So it may be, and I tend to think, as many others do, that Dunbar's number is no longer relevant, because social media renders it obsolete, because we can connect to so many more people. And people are becoming more comfortable with these casual associations where maybe you only connect with someone through one tiny sliver of your life, and they don't expect everything that comes with a regular traditional friendship. So interesting there. The other thing that's going on, are the blurring lines are personal and private lives. Those lines are evaporating. You've probably seen that if you're on any social networking sites. It used to be sort of that LinkedIn was like the professional site, and so that's where you would hook up with your coworkers, and Facebook was personal. But then you started getting invites from coworkers on Facebook, but that's personal, you know, and these lines are sort of bleeding and blurring together, and we can't really compartmentalize our lives anymore because of everything that's available. It used to be that, like, you know, there's you at church, there's like you at work, there's you at school, there's you at home, and they were all separate. But when everyone has a mobile phone and can take pictures, and there's you know, the Google Street View truck drives down and catches you doing whatever you're doing, those lines sort of are disappearing because that information, the walls are porous, and that information just goes everywhere, and everybody has access to it. The other thing that's happening is technologies are merging and integrating, and that's basically what social media is. It's a combination of a bunch of tools built on top of sort of a framework of connections to other people. So you have, you know, chat, instant messaging, message boards, photo sharing, file sharing, collaboration, and what makes that's all sort of lumped into. That's basically what Facebook is a lumping together of all these technologies, but also laying over top of it a framework to connect with other people and aggregate that data and find out, oh, this person's into the band that I like. I can go friend them, and now I can see what my friends are doing and that kind of a thing. So all these things are starting to merge, and you'll notice that the dominant social networking sites have started incorporating other services. So as something rises up, they respond to it and either, you know, buy the startup out, or they build their own capacity for it. So Facebook, when Twitter became popular, they started incorporating Twitter-like features into Facebook. They bought Friend Feed and services like that. The really big thing that's going on right now is mobile technology, and as the capacity for you know, smartphones has increased, they're merging that with social networking, obviously. So if anybody's, you know, played Foursquare or anything like that, this is Google Goggles, sort of an envisionment of Google Goggles, which is the idea that you take your phone and you take a picture of something and it searches the web and tells you what that is. So if you go to a city and you're looking for, where am I in this city, you take a picture and it tells you, oh yeah, and here's the restaurants around here, and here's all this information. What's this item in this store? Can I take a picture of that? And Google will reference that and tell you maybe, you know, what it costs at other stores, who has the cheapest price, you know, with or without shipping, and that kind of thing. There's actually a company, a Dutch company, I believe, that it already has something working where they've mapped out things in Amsterdam, and you can literally just hold your phone and look, and it'll tell you, as you're looking, you have sort of a new window where little things pop up and tell you what that business is and what this is and what that landmark is and that site. And then you can, you know, get historical information, listen to a podcast of a tour, you know, that kind of thing. And all that is going through the mobile devices. They're becoming one of the most prominent ways people connect to the web, particularly in the context of the community college. Urban and minority audiences tend to connect to the internet through their mobile devices. That's their primary connection to the web. Kind of interesting thing. Everything is becoming more portable, and people demand that. The data is portable, web access is portable. People expect to have access to anything, anytime, anywhere, and that gives us all sorts of new capabilities that we've never had before. And that's why people sort of worry about, you know, what's going to come next after Facebook and that kind of thing. I don't tend to worry about it because somebody will write a program that scrapes all of your profile information out of Facebook and exports it to the new thing. So if Facebook ever angers their crowd enough to the point where they want to leave, somebody will make that an attractive option that takes it away. So when you're thinking about an approach to social media and what you want to do with it, I think like using a spider web is sort of a good metaphor for a few reasons. Every approach to using social media is unique to the situation, you know, just as every spider, you know, depending on what corner or, you know, where they spin the web, everything is unique. There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach to for anyone. It requires constant attention, right? Spiders are always maintaining the web because it gets damaged. Same thing with social media. It requires constant attention and a lot of time, really. That's sort of the main investment. The tools don't cost much, but it does take a lot of time to get involved in this. And it's very powerful, yet also delicate. So you have a lot of, just like spider silk, you have a lot of power and a lot of information at your disposal, but it's also very fragile because of that permanence and that availability of information. you can also do a lot of damage if you're not careful and you sort of blunder into things. Some of the social media platforms sort of broadly categorized. You have things like blogs, and those would be things like Blogspot, Typepad, WordPress, LiveJournal. GRCC Today, for example, as we now publish it, is a blog. It uses WordPress, which is my favorite blog. They're not paying me or anything. I just like the way that they work. They're just basically a different form of a website, essentially. Blogs became popular because they automate a lot of the tasks that go along with a website. So they automatically archive things, they automatically store things. It just is a quick way to publish content and share it with people, and then not have to worry about all that maintenance of where does this go after I'm done with it, and that kind of thing. So that's where blogs came from. The other another component of social networking are the actual sites, the social, the Facebook, MySpace, LinkedIn, Ning. There's a million of them out there. So, for example, GRCC, we're on Facebook. There's a number of presence. What's becoming next, as I mentioned, is the check-in, the sort of mobile-based services. So that's like Gowalla, Foursquare. If you haven't, I don't know if you've played on any of those, but you basically check in at where you are, and some people have difficulty seeing the value in that, but if you're at a conference, for example, and you check in on here, hey, there's 5 other people checked in, that automatically sort of bridges a connection that you can sort of find people that are similar. You can look up their profile, see what they're doing, but you can also keep in contact with your friends. Where I'm over at the Hopcat. Is anybody else out tonight? Come on over to the Hopcat. That's where I am, and that's just a quick, easy way to do that. You can also, if you're just to arrive in a new city, it's a great way to find things to do, because people can post, to-do lists, or this is my favorite place to go for soup or whatever. Kind of an interesting new component. So microblogs, those would be Twitter, Jaiku, Plurk, these things where you're limited to a small amount of text, 140 characters, which is based on the mobile, the SMS text standard, that they were created to sort of respond to this interest in mobile technology. And so you can, within 140 characters, let people know what's going on. And there's a million ways to use Twitter. People are using it for all sorts of different things. There's no one right way to use it. So, you're really left on your own to sort of, to figure it out. The next sort of thing, social news, people gathering around content and categorizing, shaping. Clay Shirky referred to something he called crowdsourcing. And that's just the idea that all of this data is dumped on sort of the masses, and we all sort it and organize it and work with it. And that's worked pretty well. There's a lot of people out there that are passionate about these topics, that are willing to go through, filter things, tag things, add context, add analysis. And that's sort of how sites like Dig work. It's just people commenting or rating and evaluating content to help you sort of sift the wheat from the chaff. There's also then the multimedia sites, which you're probably familiar with: YouTube, Flickr, PhotoBucket, sites like that, where you're using, whether it's video or photos or some other form of multimedia content. And they also have a social networking component built into them. And you'll notice, Facebook, of course, also has video, and they have photo sharing. It's another sort of a response to this tool being available. The interesting thing about YouTube is, I think at last check, it was the 3rd most popular search engine. So it's a lot of influence there, a lot of power. And then there's just sort of things like instant messenger and message boards. You're all hopefully a little bit familiar with those. We have Wimba Pronto on campus. What's important to note about social media platforms is they each have their own distinct personality and attributes and sort of ambiance, really. They respond in different ways to different things and different content. So again, with this, there's no one size fits all. What you're doing or what you would like to do may be well suited for Twitter. It may not. It may be more well suited for Facebook. It may not. Something that you really have to sort of experiment with and find out. So the why of getting involved in social media is pretty significant, because a lot of people have trouble spending this much time on something like this. The first case that I make to people is that whether or not you want to be online and in social media, you are anyway. So it's best to have a stake in that and be able to sort of control how things, or at least influence how things are said about you. Because invariably, your friends and neighbors are posting photos of you on Flickr or on Facebook, and they're out there, you know. And if for example, you didn't have a Facebook profile, you wouldn't know that they were posted, first of all. And you also wouldn't be able to block them from view. So they could tag you in a photo and someone could see it, but if you had your profile settings set up, they would, you know, other people wouldn't be able to see it. There's a program called, or an application called Polar Rose that is facial recognition. And so we're going to get to an era where, you know, somebody's going to go through and run this on you know, Flickr or whatever, all the publicly available photos on Flickr, and you'll be able to, you know, identify everyone. So you'll be able to find all of those photos that you were in at like Disney World, you know, when you walked by some family's portrait, you know, with a corn dog in your hand, and you'll be able to find that photo, you know. It's really, and when if you haven't seen Google Street View, I mean, the ramifications of this are amazing. So. This stuff is shifting all the time, and it's difficult to keep up, so the sooner you can get involved, the better. You'll have sort of a less of a learning curve to worry about. I frankly have difficulty keeping up with everything. There's always new social networking sites that have to be evaluated and looked at, and is this valuable, is this going to pan out, is this, you know. So if you can at least be a little bit, you know, involved and fluent in it, that really helps the transition. By way of some intellectual heft behind that, for the first time last year, more people were using social media than email. So this isn't a fad, it's not going away. It's going to be the new way that we live, work, and play, basically. And that's really what a lot of these things do. If you think about something like Xbox Live, the gaming system, it's also a social networking platform. There are people, you know, playing with other players from around the world, forming friendships. If you talk to anyone that's a gamer that plays, you know, Halo or, you know, Medal of Honor, any of these games, they likely know people in other countries, or they've played against people in other countries. That's sort of the thing, is there's going to be this interesting generation of people that have grown up with international pen pals in the form of, you know, raiding campaigns, or, you know, that kind of thing. There are some threats. That's another concern, particularly for an institution as large as GRCC. One of the things that we spend a lot of time doing in communications is watching out for, you know, the threats to the college. So those can be like things like misinformation. You know, if Wood TV accidentally tweets the wrong cancellation information about the college, if we can, you know, be aware of that as quickly as it happens and try to stop that from snowballing, we can, you know, fix that. There's just misinformation. People are asking questions all the time about your organization. I watch Yahoo Answers, for example. People will ask questions about GRCC, and who better to answer them than someone from the college, you know. So that also tends to be a lot of what we do, is just getting information out there. People want to know things, and the faster you can get it to them, they're appreciative, and you know, everybody involved is happy. There's blind spots. There are things that we weren't aware of. One of the recent things has been sort of this increase in white supremacist activity on campus. So I've been able to keep track of that, because they've posted videos and websites and blog posts. So we're aware of what their activities are going to be, you know, before, say, a diversity lecture presentation. So we can just sort of have that rolling around the back of our head. Or, you know, if it's like skateboarders skateboarding in the parking ramps and potentially having a risk management issue, I can let, you know, Lieutenant Woolworth know about that, so that they can lock down the elevators on the weekends and keep the skater kids out. There's also fraud too. There's diploma mills all over the place, passing themselves off. You know, because our ability to credential people is one of our strongest sort of suits, and there are, you know, whether it's diploma mills, whether it's people, you know, misusing college intellectual property. There's all kinds of stuff out there. Pretending to be the college, or trying to defraud our students. There have been attempts that. There's been one that's sort of recurring about financial aid, where they're trying to charge students for filing for financial aid, which is free, you know, those sorts of things. just as there are threats, there are also a lot of opportunities. That's the great thing, is it's not as bad and dark and evil as people think. There's a lot of really great stuff going on, and that's one of the things that's consistently surprised me, is how much goodwill is out there for the college, how many advocates we have, and that kind of a thing. And being aware of them is just as powerful as being aware of the threats. So you can, find and empower these people. We had a really great situation happen recently where a student named Erasmo Velez happened to be discovered that he was featured on one of our billboards. He happened to be in a photo shoot. He was a construction trade student, and he was really excited about it. He went out with like a flip camera and had a friend shoot a video of him on the side of the highway by the billboard, and kind of say, hey, mom and dad, check this out. All my friends, this is for real. It's kind of a great sign of my accomplishment. If you get a chance, I can send you the link to the video. I think it was in GRCC today too. Oh, see, there we go. See, but that's just it. It lets people coalesce around these events, and you can get them out to so many more people. That's the great thing, is it makes it so much easier to tell good stories. And so this is the kind of thing, if you can find someone like this, and there's a lot of those people, how can we help them be louder and tell more people about the college? That ends up being a lot of what we do. You can also measure perceptions and gather data. Really helpful during the millage campaigns. I kind of had a feeling things weren't going to go well from watching the comments and watching how much activity there was. There are a lot of tools out there for free, and I've got some handouts with some resources and stuff if you want to take a look at this. But there are all kinds of ways to slice and dice the data and analyze everything, and it can be really powerful and help you really refine your efforts. You can also influence the narrative. We have a lot of contentious issues that go on campus. This is a student-created group that were opposed to the smoking ban on campus, and just being aware of what their concerns are helps us better respond to them. If they maybe have a concern about information, why is there not a map published? We can respond to that and get a map out there, that kind of a thing, and just help correct the misinformation. We'll get into this other part later. And then work and collaborate. This is going to be the new way that we do things, whether it's through something like Google Wave, which is just an incredibly powerful tool that people haven't even scratched the surface in terms of figuring out what its possibilities are and how they can use it. There's just amazing tools now, and this is going to be how we get things done. It's just going to be kind of amazing to see what happens to the workplace in the next decade or so. So moving on to the how. Some of the things that are part of social media that help us: search engine optimization, making sure that your web content and your presence and your information is accessible and gets to people. Search engines have gotten really powerful and really good at indexing and cataloging information, but there are ways that you can sort of make it difficult for them to get to that information and stop people from finding it. And the majority of people do use search engines to get information. That's how they find it, because there's just too much out there. It's not that it's so much more difficult to just go to a site and find what you need. You really need a tool to sift through everything that's out there, and so that makes it vastly more important to be involved in whether it's using keywords or contextualizing your information to help people find it, not necessarily locking it away in documents. Putting something online as opposed to in a PDF can really help, because it's easier for the search engine to crawl that. Monitoring, that's some of the other stuff that we do, and that can be helped with tools like RSS readers to help take some of the burden off. But the measurement is another component, and also research, making sure that you're aware of everything that you need to be before you sort of get involved and start doing what it is that you'd like to do. You really need to sort of get in there and experience it. It's difficult to explain. I've been doing it for so long. There are things that I just do sort of reflexively that I've just learned over 10 years of being a geek and being locked away in a basement somewhere online doing this stuff. It's difficult actually for me to put it down into words, because I don't know how deep down I need to get nested into it to explain it to people. There are a lot of tools that can help you with this. Search tools, there are a variety of different search engines. Some of them are in these handouts that will help you find different things. If you really want to creep yourself out, there's a great search engine called People, PIPL.com, and it searches multiple, it's a meta search engine, so it searches multiple databases. So it'll pull everything from district court records to voting records to address book records to social media profiles to news articles. So go check it out and see what is out there about you. I feel bad because I really scared an employee one time because I told them about that. I maybe should have just kept quiet. So these are some of these tools. They're changing all the time. It's difficult for me to keep track of them because some of them will just fold or get bought out and that kind of a thing. But these are some of the ones that are currently being used. This, for example, is Google Blog Search. It's a sub-search of Google that searches only blog content, just like a search engine like Technorati. So if you're looking just for what people are commenting on in blogs, this is a good way to go. RSS is another really powerful tool. It stands for really simple syndication, and if you can at all publish an RSS feed of what you're doing, do it, because it makes it so much easier for people to get that information. And it also, going back to earlier, it makes that information much more portable. People can get it how they want to, in the form that they want. And that's the thing that's the new paradigm about the web. You have a website, but people, and you go, a lot of this time and effort goes into designing the website, but people may never see what your actual website looks like, because if it's published through an RSS feed, it'll pull and it'll look like what they want it to look like, because it will be, they'll see it in a reader tool, or they'll see it on a mobile device, and they'll never see all of the aesthetic touches and flourishes that you put on it, because all they're concerned about is the data and the content that's in there. That's all they want. So it's important to be, if at all possible, using something like RSS. Twitter automatically publishes an RSS feed of your tweets, so you can then make those portable. And for example, in GRCC Today, we take our Twitter feed for the college and push it so that it shows up in a panel in GRCC Today. So if you're looking in GRCC Today, you'll see all of the latest tweets that the college has published. Same thing with calendars. Our events calendar tool lets people get that information how they want to. They may use a reader tool like Google Reader, and then all that information comes into one place. That's the one that I use, that I recommend, because it's web-based and it's really great and it's fantastic and I love it. I would marry it if I could. Same thing with your blog as well. Another way for people to get content. It's not that people don't have to go out to your blog every week. Your blog can come to them when it's ready. It's kind of funny. People are still saying you need to be publishing every day and your blog and to get readers and that kind of thing. Well, I don't know about that, because they'll get it when they want to. Same thing with podcasts and all that stuff. So anyhow, this is an example of Google Reader. This is like my control station. I have all of these RSS feeds from search tools set up so that if anybody says anything about the college, I hear about it, I find out about it. And that's how I publish the articles every day, is based on all of the information that comes in from here. Everything from a job applicant tweeting that he's wearing his fake glasses so he looks smarter for his job interview at GRCC, to the student complaints, to all of those sorts of things. And the great thing is we have the ability to respond, and there are some organizations that do this really well. Southwest Airlines, although they had that recent fracas with Kevin Smith, they do this really well. They watch what people are saying about other airlines, and they basically Twitter poach customers of other airlines. If somebody's having a bad experience on an airline, they're watching Twitter, and they'll say, hey, how many people are on your plane? If you can get to this depot, this hub of the airport, we'll fly you all we'll accept your tickets and fly you to wherever. So, and you basically build a customer for life there if you do things like that, those sort of nice heroic gestures. And I'd like the college to be doing some of that. I've got some ideas for Welcome Week that I'd like to try out. I'm working with Eric Mullen on them, so we'll see. They're kind of kooky. Another great example of a use of RSS is this is a feed coming out of our YouTube account. So all of the latest YouTube videos will show up in Blackboard for students that want to see them. Same thing with our Flickr photo stream. It's just piped right into Blackboard. So you can just repurpose this data in all sorts of ways. Whether or not to participate, that's sort of the question. Watching is one thing, that's fairly innocuous, and it's immensely valuable too. So if nothing else, watch and learn and get information, because that can be very helpful. If you do decide to participate, there's sort of some rules that have evolved because of all of these new paradigms. The first rule, I have sort of three rules. The first one is do no harm, and that is basically when you're dealing with a contentious situation, sometimes you can make it a whole lot worse by interacting. Sometimes you can just let it lie, and maybe nobody will ever run across that comment again. Maybe very few people saw it, so it's not a big deal. So just always be cautious. Don't try to make a situation worse, because you can, and you can attract the attention. There's a lot of people with a whole lot of free time, and you can make them angry and then really create a mess for yourself. So just be careful. First, do no harm. The second one, do research. Know what you're talking about, understand the community. One of the worst things you can do is blunder in as an outsider into a closely knit sort of discourse community of people that have certain communication codes and understand certain things. It'll be very apparent if you're that you're an outsider in a lot of communities, because they have a way of doing business that they all know, and if you don't know it, it will be very apparent, from your use of language to the sort of demands you make, that kind of a thing. So just always understand. And the interesting thing, for example, all of the local media have sort of message boards and content sites and let you comment on the articles. Each one has its own distinct personality. The Grand Rapids Press has a completely distinct personality of the people that comment on its articles, compared to Wood TV, compared to like the toilet bowl that is WZZM, and their crazy, outlandish commenters on their message boards. It's just something you can only learn from experiencing it, and you'll understand what they're willing to tolerate and what they won't by participating and watching. The third thing that I would say is do the right thing, and by that I mean be transparent, be open, be accountable, be personal, be accessible, because that's the new model. You can't hide anymore. If someone wants to find out who you are, they will, and that can only do much more damage to your reputation than being open and transparent. So, for example, when I comment on stories, if they're related to the college, I always disclose that I work at the college, just to let people know, because eventually, they could trace it back to me if they wanted to. Odds are they won't, but they could, and that's the new paradigm. There were a whole bunch of politicians and other people that got in big trouble because they were going in and editing their own Wikipedia entries, and a guy wrote a simple program that traced the edits, who was making the edits, the IP addresses that were making the edits, back to where they originated from, and found out it was their campaign offices or the PR firms that worked for these companies. And then you get into the problem of, what did you delete? Because now that's really interesting. What did you not want people to know? You just shined a bright spotlight on it, so now everybody's going to focus on that. Both the McCain and Obama campaigns, I think, got in trouble for that a while ago. Or when they changed their websites, they eliminated some text, and there's a service called Versionista that watches websites and tracks the versions of websites. So if they suddenly delete a whole paragraph of text, what did they just delete? What are they not committing to now? That kind of a thing. So do the right thing. We're really fortunate, and this is sort of one of the things that in professional trade publications they've noticed. Nonprofits, the public sector, is quite a bit ahead in terms of use of social media over the private sector. In part, I think, because we're open by nature. By law, we have the Open Meetings Act and that sort of thing that we subscribe to, and so we're comfortable with being open, whereas corporations tend to be very inclined to protect information and keep it hidden and try to at all costs keep information from coming out. They're not ready for the new paradigm, and that's why you keep seeing all the trouble that they get into when somebody finds something and posts it. The Toyota sort of thing, the idea that they thought that they could sit on that information and not have it come out is ridiculous. Same thing with virtually anything else. Invariably, in your organization, there's an employee that is willing to post something on a site like WikiLeaks. Some sort of the internal documents. There's a great site called consumerist.com where people can post all of the dirty secrets of the companies that they work for, all the customer service stuff. So if you want to get right to, through the menu, or use the right form or use the right phrase to get get your refund or get a certain pricing, that's all posted there.
What was that one?
Yeah, consumerist.com. It's a good site. That's the new model. All this can be undone by an employee with a smartphone with a camera on it. That's the new model. So it doesn't pay to be deceptive or secretive. And the great thing is, people give you the benefit of the doubt when you're open and honest. And we've had some really, really great interactions. Hopefully I can show some of that. Because of radical change. That's sort of the new concept that people are trying, that some PR thinkers are trying to get people to adopt, is radical transparency. The idea that you just make yourself open, like we do. That you post your coffee and conversation with Dr. Ender on YouTube. Let people see it. We don't have anything to hide. It's okay. They'll get the information. No problem. What this means, though, is that you really have to live whatever you're doing. We're entering this new era where people are having to work a lot harder and put a lot more hours into the jobs that they're doing. So now's a good time to find what you like doing and do that, because you're going to be doing it a lot. And the same thing with social media. If you don't like who you're working for and you had to work on social media, you have to put a lot of time into something you hate. So think about that. It also, because of the dynamics of social media, you're much more personal and accessible, so it'll come through if you don't like what you're doing, if you don't believe in what you're saying, unless you're really good at lying, which some people are, and that's good for them. It will come through that you're not passionate about this, and that's why I kind of...
You have acting classes too.
Oh yes, acting class, of course. It can be learned, right.
Lying can be learned.
Exactly. Deception, it's mastering your nonverbal presentations. No, that's okay. But yeah, that's, it just, there's so many ways that it can come out that, you don't feel the way that you do, because your personal life and your professional life are going to be one. And so if you're, for example, a Coke executive and you're running around drinking Pepsi, somebody's going to, somebody could take a picture of you doing that, or, they could get some, I don't know, see you in a store or something like that. So it's important to be invested in this. The reasons for that are that most of this communication is one-to-one, even though we have this sort of many-to-many thing, and there are always bystanders watching your one-on-one interactions. Sort of the way that I think about social media, sort of, if you could conceptualize it, it's like you're sitting at someone's kitchen table having a conversation with them, because it's that personal. It's really, you're in their space in a lot of cases, and the Grand Rapids Press is standing in the doorway listening. That's because you have that reach. That little one-on-one interaction has the ability to go worldwide. That's sort of the new paradigm, whereas before the words said between you would have just gone into the ether and nobody would have seen them again. They're now permanent and accessible and available to the entire world. That's sort of the new, and we're not ready for this. That's why we're seeing a lot of trouble with whether it's employers Googling employees and then firing them for the things that everybody's doing, like everybody doesn't do keg stands, We're going to have this real period of social adjustment, because we're going to have to get used to the idea that people are imperfect and everybody's sort of a freak and has their freaky things that they do that are maybe not socially acceptable. Because we're going to have to deal with these people. Like, can you imagine, for example, what the presidential election is going to look like in 40 years when every candidate has their entire awkward adolescent legacy documented in meticulous detail, every stupid comment they've ever made, every stupid photo they've ever taken? We're going to have to get comfortable with us being flawed human beings. So that's kind of a digression, but that's sort of the new paradigm. It's 24/7 again, like we said, it's real time. People expect to get an answer at 1 in the morning, and sometimes I'm on there giving them an answer at 1 in the morning because I drink too much coffee. You have to have a passion for it. That comes through when you're interested in stuff. It'll come through, and there's so many ways more for it to come through now. As rich as these mediums are, there's so many ways for that passion to come through. Again, it's hyper personal, like the analogy that I had of sitting at somebody's kitchen table, and it's authenticity driven. If you know anything about young people, and really, I mean, adults nowadays, we're very vigilant and critical and able to sniff out inauthentic things, whether it's advertising campaigns, whether it's whatever, because we've grown up, with decades of marketing research applied to us, and they've sprayed us with enough Raid that we've become immune to it, and we're very, very aware of when things are inauthentic, and it doesn't play well on social media because there's so many ways to discover the deception. So it pays to be authenticity driven. And that's the approach that we've tried to take with the Facebook page. I want that to be a place where we can have tough conversations and have contentious debates, because they need to happen, and it's better that we have them in an open forum that everyone can see, because it will invariably benefit us. If we're in the right, we should be able to present that, and we usually are. And if we're not, we should be able to take the criticism and respond and change what we're doing. So this is a great example. This is one of our students who he posted a lot of, asked a lot of tough questions, posted some critical stuff, and I just sort of responded. I said, that's a great point. Here's some people that you can talk to if you want to have your concerns addressed, or I was able to provide him with some information, and this is the kind of comments you can get. This is the kind of thing that we want to build. And the great thing is, he isn't the only one that saw this. Everybody that was a fan, so we have about almost 1,000 fans of the group, and it only started a year ago or so. All of them saw it, and potentially all of the people in their networks saw it. Because if it came up in their network, their friends may have seen it based on what information they've subscribed to about their friends. So the reach could exponentially have been larger than what it appears on the surface. So that's the great thing, that you can have a very huge reach very quickly with this information, which is why it's great to get all of those good things out there, because the more ways you can have them people happen across it, the more good promotion you get. This is something I started. This is a group for the SOCİAL Institute. Has 286 fans as of earlier this week, and it was something that I started solely by sharing it with one person, and then it grew from there. People added as a fan. People keep adding, new fans all the time, and that's the thing. There's sort of a pressure and a rush to get fans and get users and people watching you and participants and that kind of thing. But I wouldn't worry about that. I would just worry about quality over quantity. Get the people that you want, and they'll find you. You'll find them, and they'll find you, which is the great thing about all these tools. Focus on the quality of the relationships. What can you provide of value to them, and that sort of a thing. So a lot of times on the GRCC Facebook site, it's just information. Somebody wants to know when the cashier's refunds are, when they can go to get their refund checks. We can post it right there, and then how many calls did we save going into the call center, or people running around asking for information? How much hassle did we stop? And there's a lot of other ways that I'm really excited about that I can't really tell you about, that we're going to be using more information to help people get more information about the college. So next steps. The first thing that I would recommend you do is just do an audit. Go out there, use some of these search tools, see what's said. Just try some of them out. One I would recommend is steprep.com. It's kind of a cool search engine because it keeps track of everything and lets you categorize things as positive, negative, or neutral. So you can kind of track, is the comments about, are the comments about me or my organization positive or negative or neutral? It's kind of an easy way to build that in. You don't have to get that, into it, but just going out there and getting familiar with what's being said out there is really, really helpful and really enlightening in a lot of cases. And the great thing is you'll find out a lot of great things about your organization. As many groups as we on campus have created, there are dozens and dozens more student-created or alumni-created groups that are positive about the college. People that are, were in the nursing program and are really passionate about it, and they've created their own Facebook group just because they love the connections with the people and that kind of a thing. So there's all kinds of great stuff going on. And part of our task is how can we tap into that? How can we give them a platform and give them a voice? Could we maybe hold events for them? Sponsor an event if you all want to come back. And what can that do in terms of fundraising and all sorts of other applications? The other thing I would say is just watch it for a while. Monitor and observe. Use something like Google Reader. Subscribe to the RSS feeds. If you see, most of these search tools offer an RSS feed of the search results. So say you wanted to search for child development, GRCC child development, you can subscribe to those results. So like you set it and forget it, just like the Ronco thing. All those results just come into you, and then you look at them when you want to. So every morning when I walk in, all this stuff is delivered right to my doorstep. I don't have to go out and search every blog and do this all over again. It all comes to me. And in some cases, it comes to my phone. I've got some alerts for Twitter set up so that instantly when someone tweets, because we've had some situations like that where it does need immediate action, you can do that as well if there's an emergency situation. So the other thing, the third sort of phase is create, get in there, participate. Put some information, start a blog, start a Twitter feed, Twitter account, start a Facebook fan page. Try it, see how it goes. It may work, it may not. You may have to refine your approach over a while. The interesting thing that you'll probably find is when I started doing a lot of this stuff, I was worried about adding personal details and throwing personal content in there because I figured, no, most of my stuff was professionally oriented. I wanted, social media thought and communications thought and that kind of thing. But people actually love the personal details. We're very, social sort of animals, and we love those personal details. So if you can throw those in, if you can tell stories, find the narrative, use those personal things, people love that stuff. So that is a great way to think about it. And Twitter, for example, is a great forum for the personal because it is a more personal, of the social networking platforms, it is one of the more personal. It's very immediate, very socially oriented. Clive Thompson, who's a writer for Wired, I had difficulty when Twitter came out trying to figure out what the use of it was. And he put it, I think, best. He said it's basically like a social sixth sense. It lets you see what's going on in your group of friends and mine the sort of internet, the wealth of the internet for information. You'll see a lot of times people using it because it's so immediate, because it's tied to mobile phones and people are watching it constantly and updating it constantly. People just throw out questions. Hey, I need this. Does anybody know this? And you'll likely get an answer. It's pretty amazing. I mean, you can look for pretty much anything and get that detail, get that information, cultivate those friendships, and that's sort of there's this great wealth of people and information and knowledge out there, and we have so many more ways to tap into it. So.
That commercial when they spill the spaghetti sauce.
Right.
How do you get spaghetti sauce? How do you get
Right.
They eat
Yeah, and then all you have to do, right? Exactly.
Vinegar peroxide.
Yeah, exactly. That's precisely it. I set up a social media directory so that if you do start publishing something, we can put it here. So if people are looking for information about the college, just sort of trying to tie these things into a hub. It kind of helps to set up a hub, whether it's your web page, and then go off and do these things and then link back to them so that there's sort of a connection between them all. It's important to connect the pieces for people so that they can get back and forth. I can go more, I have some basic sort of outlines here, but I have some more detailed guidelines for social media use, in terms of making sure that you state that you're with the college, be transparent about who's publishing this Twitter feed, make sure to clearly state that in the description and that kind of a thing. And I'm happy to share those. I'm working on a policy. I don't know if it's something that the college will adopt, but I'm working on a policy. So I'd be happy to, if you have any questions, I'm kind of an overview, so I know that everybody has sort of a specific interest, but I'm happy to take any questions anybody has.
So on that social media directory, because I am planning, and I know we've talked about this, but rather than, because what I'm doing, or what I have been doing, because I'm not as proficient as I want to be, but playing with the Facebook thing, but I typically put our shows just out on my Facebook, because a lot of my networking is through theater people. But I want to start the fan page, so then we could have a link to it there as well.
Oh, sure.
Like the GRCC players.
Here's a great example of all this stuff tying together. So what we can do is you already put your events in the events calendar.
Exactly.
That publishes an RSS feed. So what we can do is push that RSS feed out to other places.
Okay.
So all these places that you want to have that go, we can set it up so that it publishes it to Twitter, so that it tweets your events when they come up. You could embed them in your web page, so that when people come to the page, they see all the latest events coming up.
Good. Okay.
So
and
yeah.
We're also doing classes now, taping.
Sure.
Little bits.
That's a great thing. We can embed video. So it might be, when we're talking about sort of redoing the theater site, maybe it'd be best as a blog, and because it tends to be, right, you probably just have fresh information you want people to have. Maybe you have a few static pages where the contact information, the about us, but most of what you're doing is just publishing fresh information, and then the great thing is that other stuff doesn't go away. It's archived, so if somebody happened to cross it, they could still, if they still wanted to find it, they could find it, but that might be the way to go. So we can definitely look at doing something like that.
Good. Okay. Yeah.
And that's great, because that makes that data portable, gets it out there, lets people do what they want to with it. So, yeah.
I'm assuming, because you're taping this will be available to the
That's the idea.
population.
Regrettably, yeah.
So hugely important for folks, especially if they are commenting about things. And as we know, we had talked about this before you even started the presentation. We love to hop on the negative. We love to get things stirred up. And I think one of your first comments was just kind of don't get emotional, don't get personal about responding to some of these things.
Yes.
Because that's when it just gets
it's unproductive.
And ugly and people do their opinion. It's unfortunate we do have a lot of that negative slant.
Sure.
But I think it's important to learn how to diffuse things professionally.
And really, the really fascinating thing about all of this is, so we've put a lot of effort and energy into understanding the mass media, and then interpersonal communication, one-on-one communication, is the new mass media. I mean, so good interpersonal communication skills. It's kind of funny because I'm teaching an interpersonal comm class right now. Good interpersonal communication skills, that's the new valuable asset. If you're good at relating to people, that's easily transferable to social media. And so conflict resolution, knowing how to handle these situations and how to think about them and how to positively approach, you know, a negative situation, all that stuff is directly applicable. That's the kind of crazy thing. And the good part is when you can do that and when you're fair in your dealings with people, other people see that. People, there's sort of this like perception that the internet is like a roving mob with like torches and pitchforks. But there's a lot of really, really highly intelligent, well-intentioned people with a huge overdeveloped sense of fairness. And if the other person reacts unfairly, that is seen. You know, it's not missed. So if you do your best to try to resolve an issue and they still react like a jerk, that's going to come through. People are going to see that. And there's a lot of tools also built in for that now that people are accounting for on review sites and that sort of a thing. People can rate the reviews. They review the reviews. And people that are just cranking, you know, that are just cranks that are angry about something, it comes through if they don't have a valid criticism, and those reviews tend to drift to the bottom and be less credible. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It is important to reinforce those skills in the employees, definitely. That's you know, and remind them that they're not anonymous. You know, it can get back to them. You know, yeah, and you know, and that's, I don't know. It's like on the surveys too. It's like, you know, that they could, like on those Zoom rank surveys, they could get down to the node that you're on and find out who said that snarky thing.
You know, and
not that they would necessarily,
validity and bringing out, you know, how you truly feel about something.
Absolutely.
But there's a really good professional way to do it.
Absolutely.
And then be open to others that want to bring their legitimate point of view.
Yep, and that's where you build this credibility, is if you are willing to give people the forum to, on our own Facebook page, I will entertain criticism of the college. I have no problem with that, and that buys a lot of credibility. If people see that and they say, "Wow, they're not, you know, they're not so bad." Yeah, and it's all one-to-one. It's and that's why it's important to think about this as being a very personal interaction, because you would react totally differently in person as opposed to anonymously online. That sort of anonymous, flaming, angry sort of stuff that used to be able to get away with doesn't really work anymore. You know, it's best to think about that, especially in an institutional context like this, to think about that one-on-one interaction and to handle things that way. So.
I think we reach a point, this will be excessive, like 20 years from now, we will have a private life. Everything you do when you go outside is going to be on camera. Like in London, you're on camera everywhere you go. They can find you there.
It's going to be what's interesting about privacy is that younger generations that are growing up with all of this stuff, they've sort of surveyed them and watched their behavior. They have radically different notions about privacy than like we do, than adults do. And I've even changed my notions of privacy. It used to be on the internet, say 10 years ago, 12 years ago, however many years ago when I was on. You were anonymous in like everything you did. You know, you did your best to protect your identity. You didn't have any information out there. Now it's completely flipped. I find myself completely public, trying to make myself more available, make myself more accessible, because that sort of fear of the privacy thing has sort of gone away. And there is, you know, identity theft and that kind of a thing, but that'll happen whether or not you know, protect your privacy. And that's, so we're entering into a whole new era where people are going to get more and more comfortable with being filmed and videotaped and, you know, all that sorts of stuff all the time, and they'll just come to expect it. It's the trade-off, I think, is too powerful. People are willing to trade their privacy for all of the convenience and benefits because there's so many of them. So yeah, we're gonna, you know, it could be like a Minority Report type future where everything's on. I mean, and if you followed Google Street View and some of the stuff that happened, I mean, there was actually a guy that works for like a privacy advocate. I don't know if he works for the ACLU, but he was actually photographed by the Google Street View truck smoking, and he was hiding that he was smoking from his family. So it's kind of a perfect example of, and that's the kind of thing that can come out. You know, there were websites devoted to all of the weird stuff that it picked up, like it hit a deer. One of the trucks hit a deer, and so you could watch the photos of the deer bouncing off of the hood of the car. Not a happy sort of thing. And people were flashing the Google Street View truck because they knew what it was and what it was coming to do. And then, you know, there's people bent over and you see their underwear and their whatever. So. But yeah, it's going to be, especially as the mobile devices get more powerful, it's going to be amazing to see what happens, because you'll literally be able, like I could walk into a room and like scan the room and identify everybody. You know, that's the sort of thing that we're moving toward. That's going to be possible, and then not only recognize everybody, but get intense amounts of detail about them. You know. Based on what's going online, because, you know, as medical records go online, as all of this information goes on, there's tons of financial transactions, and they're not protected best. Every once in a while, you'll read those stories about financial information getting out because somebody just posted it on Twitter. There was a situation, some county clerk or something like that posted a link on Twitter to a spreadsheet full of personal information. So we're going to have to get better at responding to when there are breaches of data and that kind of a thing, I think, to try to reconcile that. So.
My dad called me a couple months ago and said, you have a parking ticket you haven't paid. And I said, well, I don't, no, I don't. And he said, Brittany, my niece, was online and found it probably on that PIPL.
Yeah, could be, yeah, it'll show, it'll show.
And I thought, oh crap, I think I do, and I went online, sure enough.
It's kind of like if your notion of God doesn't keep you in line, this will.
Truly.
Kind of like,
Truly. There's a great example. There was a woman who let her dog go number 2 in a subway in Tokyo. And she basically became called the dog poop girl because somebody took a picture of her doing it because she wouldn't clean it up. So they took a picture of it, and suddenly she became, millions and millions of people know they identified her, figured out who she was. There was also a case in New York where a guy lost his, what was it? His wife lost her cell phone, and they found the person that was using it, and he basically created like a whole community around this because it angered people that they were very flippant about not giving the phone back and being really, throwing it in their face, and there were some racist connotations and stuff. So they actually got, millions of people behind them. People were harassing these young kids that had stolen the phone, and even police officers were calling him and giving him inside information about what complaints to file and who to go talk to and how to get this handled. And they got, for a lost cell phone, you're never going to get the New York NYPD to show up, but they actually did. They force it. So that's the kind of, this can blow up into something huge, and that's what people are still getting used to. If you break a guy's guitar on your airline, be careful because he could write a song about it on YouTube that gets millions and millions of views.
Right.
So,
which of course was done because
right. Yep.
Where did we see that? What was that?
Yeah, that actually happened. I can't remember the guy's name, but so the same thing goes here for the college. And that's why I kind of worry every day. I think one of the most important things we can do is focus on customer service and make sure that we're getting information to people, being accessible, being friendly, helping people have a good experience here. Because if we were to ever be untoward, now the good thing is we have a lot of credibility built up through years of great service and excellent education and really happy people. So we have a lot of credibility banked and a lot of goodwill that we can draw on. But these little things can chip away at that, and if we can be proactive about that and be careful, make sure that we're always trying to be helpful, we can be even better. And that's the great thing is, we're getting all kinds of coverage in the press because we're able to get more information out there. I mean, because we have a YouTube site that has so much great content out there, we have more content than most of the Ivy League universities out there on our YouTube site. We got to mention in the New York Times. We got to mention in Time Magazine about our YouTube site. Dave Murray at the Press reads GRCC Today, and he pulls stories out of there that we would never have thought to pitch to him. Who would think he'd be interested in an IRP report about some esoteric concept? And yet, he happened to be reading Inside Higher Ed, and it tickled his fancy, and he wrote a story about it. So, let's do more of that. Well, how can we get these stories out? So. And we know they're going on. We know that everybody has great things going on in their department. And the more we can get them out there, the better we'll all be. So.
Well, this kind of discussion needs to continue.
Yes.
It's not just an awareness. Tomorrow things are going to be different.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think it's really important, however we can do this, to continue sharing information and the awareness part of it and the fun factor.
Sure.
And everything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So.
Pretty much all those links I just emailed you the other day, they're going to be everywhere.
Yes. That's the idea. Yeah, that's great. No, and that's perfect because somebody may want to. Yeah. Well, get ready. I don't know if Fred Bauman kind of knew what he was getting into, but that's the great kind of thing because if we put those videos out there, those instructional videos, people are invariably going to find those just by searching. How do I do this in Word? How do I understand this stupid ribbon thing? Yeah. And you've given them an avenue, and then that is great credibility for the college because hey, look at all this great content they have out there. I wanted to learn how to do this. They helped me do it.
Yeah, we'll see Fred on a sitcom one of these days.
Right.
Probably
It'll be with webisodes. He'll be on it. Yeah, it'll be an online. Yeah.
I was thinking you won't even need Foursquare pretty soon because I can just have your, your characteristics on my phone and say, "Where's Derek now? Where's that girl I want to meet?" And it will just find your profile anywhere in the.
Right.
And that's the other thing, like Foursquare. There's a lot of great applications for an institution like GRCC. Harvard, for example, they had Foursquare create a bunch of custom badges. So like when you do different things, and have different accomplishments in Foursquare, you get a badge. So kind of like a merit badge, kind of like a little, yay, look what you did. And there's actually a company now that's sewing real badges, so you can actually buy the badges. But like if you go out to 4 places in one night, you get the bender badge, like you've been out on a bender. Or if you hit 25 places or you've gone out for every day in 1 month, you get a different badge. And so Harvard went in and they had Foursquare create a whole bunch of custom Harvard badges. So we could do the same here at GRCC. Have you been to the prehistoric garden on the 3rd floor of the student center or the Calkin Science Center and gotten the dinosaur badge, or whatever it is? We could do that here. And we could use that for orientation. There's all kinds of applications for this.
Fabulous for our students too.
That's the idea. That's why I went in and populated all the buildings on campus so that students are starting to check in at them. If you go on Foursquare.
How many people can be the mayor of Subway like you are?
Only one.
Only one.
There can be only one. Yeah.
Liar.
Yeah.